Have you ever really thought about how a country secretly builds something like a nuclear bomb? I mean, it's not just a bunch of scientists in a hidden lab, right? At its core, it's all about the money, a massive, hidden, global network of funds that makes the whole thing possible. And today, we're going to follow that money. We're going to see how one country is fighting back using its own playbook as our guide.
And really, it all boils down to this one massive question, the kind of thing that keeps world leaders up at night. How in the world do you stop the spread of the most dangerous weapons ever created?
Well, the answer, at least in theory, is almost brutally simple. You cut off the money. Seriously. If you can choke off their funding, you can starve these deadly programs before they even get off the ground. That's the whole game. And it's the core idea behind this global strategy we call countering proliferation financing.
All right, so here's the official definition. Proliferation financing, or PF for short, is basically any financial activity, any at all, that helps someone build, buy, or move nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. The real risk here is that these proliferators will get clever and find ways to dodge the very sanctions meant to stop them. We're talking specifically about the big UN Security Council sanctions targeting places like North Korea and Iran. But, theory is one thing. To see how this all works in the real world, we're going to look at a specific country's playbook, Malaysia's official 2024 Proliferation Financing Risk Assessment. This gives us a really rare peek under the hood at how a modern, open economy tries to grapple with such a shadowy threat.
So, what did they find? What's the bottom line? After a huge review covering everything from 2019 to 2023, Malaysia rated its overall national risk as medium-low. Now, that's the big headline, of course, but trust me, the really interesting story is in the details.
And this is where it gets fascinating, because Malaysia's greatest economic strengths are also its biggest vulnerabilities. Its strong economy, its perfect geographic location with competitive ports, how easy and fast it is to set up a business, all of these are things that bad actors could try to exploit. It's that classic problem, right? How do you stay open for business without also being open for abuse?
Okay, so the assessment then zooms in on the two primary state-sponsored threats that pretty much every country has to think about. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the DPRK, and Iran. And this comparison just illustrates so well how differently Malaysia views these two threats. For the DPRK, it's a high concern, but the actual activity and their presence in the country is low and it's shrinking. With Iran, it's kind of the opposite. A lower concern for now, but there's some activity, and that could actually increase as their diplomatic relationship gets better.
Yeah, the relationship with North Korea didn't just fade away, it absolutely collapsed. The breaking point was that incredible assassination of Kim Jong-nam back in 2017, right there in the Kuala Lumpur airport. After that, the dominoes just fell one after another. Trade stopped, diplomatic ties were completely severed, visas were shut down. The result? A massive reduction in the North Korean footprint inside the country.
Now, let's flip that and contrast it with Iran. Here, the report is clear. Malaysia's exposure is small. And this is because of very limited trade, a pretty small number of Iranian nationals and companies operating there. It's just a completely different kind of risk profile.
This chart really helps put some numbers to that story. You can see that trade with Iran has been ticking up, reaching 3.7 billion ringgit in 2022. But, and this is so important, you have to put that into perspective. That number is just over 0.1% of Malaysia's total trade. So we're talking about a very small slice of a very large economic pie.
But, and this is a big but, even a small exposure can carry a very real risk. And here's the proof. In late 2023, the U.S. Treasury actually sanctioned some groups based in Malaysia for helping Iran's drone program. It's a huge reminder that even if your overall risk assessment is low, these incredibly specific and dangerous threats can still pop up.
So, when you're faced with these kinds of threats, what do you do? Well, this brings us to Malaysia's defensive strategy. All the control measures they've put in place to try and protect their financial system.
They've built what they call a layered defense. Think of it like a medieval castle. First, you need strong laws on the books. That's your castle wall. Second, you need national cooperation. Getting all the different government agencies to talk and share intelligence, those are the guards on the wall. The third layer is this critical partnership with the private sector, working with the banks who are on the front line seeing suspicious transactions. And finally, you have oversight to make sure the rules are actually being followed. Each layer is designed to make it just that much harder for illicit money to find a crack to slip through.
But look, this isn't a static game. The threats are always changing, always evolving. So the final part of this assessment looks to the horizon.
trying to identify what future risks are coming and recommending how to get ready for them.
And once again, the outlook for the DPRK and Iran is moving in opposite directions. The DPRK's physical presence is expected to keep shrinking, but the threat is shifting online. We're talking about a serious focus on cryptocurrency heists by state-linked hackers. For Iran, the physical and economic presence is actually expected to grow, which raises all the classic concerns about front companies being used to get around sanctions.
So how do you fight against that? Well, the recommendations are pretty targeted and smart. They want to look way more closely at people with dual citizenship, because they can be harder to track. They plan to use data on the ultimate beneficial owner, that's the real person behind a company, to unmask shell companies. And of course, it all comes down to more training and targeted enforcement to try and stay one step ahead.
Which really just leaves us with this final thought. Malaysia's situation perfectly shows this fundamental tension that every single country faces. In a world of hidden financial networks and complex threats, how do you stay an open, vibrant hub for global trade while also protecting yourself and the world from the most serious security risks imaginable? There's just no easy answer to that.